Good day and welcome to another tutorial on web application development, and today we are going to be taking a look on FLEXBOX. We have been designing our documents using floats left, but today we are going to be using FLEXBOX, and you are going to compare and contrast the two and choose the one that really work well for you. But trust me, you will really enjoy FLEXBOX, and it's even more of an advanced way of working with your web page compared to float left, so you do not want to miss this at all. In that case, let us go straight into FLEXBOX, and for now we're going to be designing something similar to this one because we have about 3 to 4 or 5 examples to quickly cover so that you get a feel on what FLEXBOX is there to provide you. And in that case, let's start working with FLEXBOX. So I will head straight to our Windows here and create a new folder for our job. So let's create a lecture, and I'm going to call this lecture 9. Okay, so head straight to Visual Studio Code editor, and I'm going to create a new window. Then inside Visual Studio Code editor, I'm going to open the folder I created earlier on. Okay, so the folder is as opened. Then I want to create a subfolder inside it, and let's call it CSS. Yeah, used to this already. I'm creating another one. Let's call it JS for JavaScript by the time we get there, and let's create another one for images even if you are not using it. So I'm going to create a file here, and I'm going to call it index.html. okay, so I'll quickly create my HTML page. Okay, then I'm going to collapse this window to give me some space. Okay, then I'm going to change the title of my document to FLEXBOX. Okay, I will hit Ctrl S to save my job. Then I'm going straight to CSS folder, and I'm creating style.css. Sorry. Okay, I'll press enter. Then head straight back to your index.html and quickly link it up. Remember, you do this with the linking tag. Then you want to specify the path to the file you are linking to, which is style.css. okay, I haven't done the linking. I want to create a div and give it a class of container. Okay, having created this div, I want to create another div inside it, and I'm going to give it a class of form control. Okay, then I'm creating a label inside the form control, and the label is going to be name. Okay, then I'm creating inputs, and the input is, we can give it an ID. By the time we enter JavaScript, this becomes Andy, and I can give it name as well. Okay, let's collapse this for now to give some space. Okay, so having closed the form control div, I'm going to open another form control div for the second control. Okay, so I'm creating a label inside here, and I'm giving the label let's say favorite color. Okay, but what is going to be displayed on the screen is going to be favorite. Sorry. Okay, then I'm creating inputs, and of course you can give it an ID of favorite color just so that there can be some differences. Remember, ID likewise name does not have space or special character in between them. And that is my HTML structure for now, and you can hit on Ctrl S to save your job. And without wasting much time, let's take a look at what we have just designed. So I'm going to reveal it inside the Explorer. I will double click on it, and it's open up for me, and this is it. Okay, not bad. So what I'm going to do now is to quickly head over to my style.css and introduce some controls. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a background color for the body, and I'm going to be choosing dark gray. So if you hit on Ctrl S to save your job, head straight to your browser and refresh, then the entire page should change to dark gray. Very good. Okay, haven't done that, I'm creating a class here called container. Do not forget we already have this class in our HTML. Okay, and this container is what I want to style for now. So I'm going to be introducing a margin, and this margin is going to be 40 pixels at the top. At the left is going to be auto, and at the bottom is going to be 0, and at the right is going to be auto. So left and right is auto, just because I want to centralize the container. Okay, so moving on further, I want to quickly introduce max width, and the maximum width is going to be 800 pixels. Okay, and so that's the maximum width the container can have. Then background color, and I'm going to give it a white background color, and if you check it out, it's giving you some hexadecimal number for the white color. So if you prefer that, you can just copy it and put the hexadecimal color for white over there. Okay, so moving on further, we have line height, and if you check on the line height, we want to give it 1.65. okay, and for now let me hit Ctrl S to save my job, and if you head straight over here and you refresh your document, now you can see that our container does have a background color, it does have a 40 pixel top margin, and auto at the left, auto at the right, thereby centralizing the container, and no margin at the bottom. That's all that we have done. Okay, but I would have loved this to give to I want some space like margin between this letter N and over here, and that you can achieve with padding on the container itself, because padding affects the contents of a container and not the entire container. The margin affects the container itself, but the padding affects anything inside the container. So let's quickly introduce margin on her container, padding on her container. So I'm giving it a padding of 20 pixels at both top and bottom, and I'm giving it 50 pixels at both left and right. And if you hit on Ctrl S to save your job and you refresh your document, then you see now that we have some space to breathe. Okay, good. Now if you head straight back to our index.html, you will discover that I indeed add some style to the container div. But what about the form control div? So you also want to do the same, style the form control as well, and let's head straight to the form control. So I want to style the form control. Okay, and for the form control, I want to add a padding of 10 pixels at both top and bottom, and 0 at both left and right. That's for the form control. Okay, then let's head straight to form control once again, then inputs. Then at this time, what am I styling? The input, which is a descendant of the form control. And if you head straight to the document, you'll discover that the input tag is a descendant of form control over here, and the input tag is a descendant of form control over here. So anything you give to the input of form control will affect both these two tags, because both of them are they qualified as the descendant of form control. So over here now, I want to style them. Okay, then let's also do the same thing for form control, then label. Okay, so I'm going to be adding some style there, but before then, let me quickly explain something to you. If you look at what I have designed right now and you compare it with this, you will discover that these inputs occupy the entire length over here, whereas my own does not. Why? The reason is because both of these two elements, the label and the input, are inline block elements, which by their very nature do not occupy the entire width. So if you want to force them to occupy the entire width, you have to it is going to be a bit difficult without FLEXBOX. But look at what FLEXBOX have to offer us. Now you will discover that if you extract back to our document, both of these are children to the form control. So the form control does become their parent. So I need to tell the form control that you should be using FLEXBOX. So once I tell the form control you should be using FLEXBOX, the children will be aware of that and they will react. Now let's take a good look at it. Heading straight back to form control, then I'm going to be using display, and the value you're going to be passing here is flex. So meaning that flex is now form control, it's now using FLEXBOX. Okay, so if you come straight here into the input, because if you hit on Control S to save your job right now and you refresh your documents, you see no big changes. Okay, but if you come down to form control input and you specify that flex should have 1, just because the parent is using flex, you now have the ability to tell your browser that the flex of input is 1. And if you hit on Control S to save your job and you refresh your document, then you can see that both of these two input now occupy the entire width, which of course is the behavior we are going for at this point. So the question now is, what exactly is this flex 1? What is it doing? What does it really what is the special role that flex 1 is giving to us at this moment? Okay, I'm not going to be answering the question now. In my next example you will be able to understand what the flex is doing very well. So once again, thanks for attending this lecture. God bless you. Good day and welcome to another tutorial on FLEXBOX. Okay, and today we are going to be looking at something different from what we saw in the last class. Okay, and we will move to this. We want to design something similar to this. That's what we are going for, and we will title this part three columns layout. Okay, so FLEXBOX is really introducing a beautiful and fantastic way of doing our layout of the web page. So we're going to be looking at 3 columns layout in FLEXBOX, which will even shed more light to what we have done in the previous class. So without wasting much of our time, let's head straight to our document and introduce what we call the FLEXBOX 3 columns layout. Okay, so let's head straight to our document and quickly introduce that. So the very first thing I want to do is to head straight to my index.html. Let me collapse this so that we can have a little space to breathe. So you will discover over here that the container does comes to the end here. Okay, so I want to quickly create another div, and I'm going to be giving it column layout. I'm going to be giving it a class of column dash layout. Okay, so inside the column layout I'm going to quickly create another div, which I'm going to be giving a class of main column. So I did have main column. Good. Okay, and after the main column I really want to create another column, which I'm going to call sidebar then 1. Okay, then I want to create another column, which I'm going to call another div, which we have a class of sidebar dash 2. Very good. So if you look at my layout very well, you will discover that I have this standing as their container, and we have 3 children, 3 divs. They qualified as the children of the column layout. Very good. So then the next thing I want to do is I need to have 3 paragraphs over here, something like this. 3 paragraphs, then I will be having 1 paragraph and 1 paragraph. Okay, so just because I do not want to waste too much of our time, let's hit Ctrl S to save our job. Then if we head straight to the next window over here, I can quickly copy some paragraph paste. Now I have 3 columns layout with a single heading. Okay, so what about my sidebar 1 and sidebar 2? So let me quickly copy it. Then the last one is the sidebar 2. So I'm going to hit Ctrl S to save my work, and if you refresh right now, you will see this is my main column. It has 3 this is my column layout div, so it has 3 div. And if you look at the div, this is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one. So let's quickly introduce some style to this. So I want to create a class over here for column layout that I'm going to be styling, and in my column layout I'm going to be doing something similar to what we have done before. So margin is going to be 40 pixels at the top, then it's going to be auto at the left, and it's going to be 0 at the bottom and another auto at the right. Okay, then having signified that, I am going to quickly introduce max width, and the max width for this one, unlike the previous one, the container that was 800 pixel, this is going to be 1300, which is 1300 pixel. Okay, and that means this is going to be longer than the previous one that we did. So now let's introduce some background color to this, and the color I'm going to be giving it as usual is going to be white. So if you type white, you can quickly get the hexadecimal value for white. Hit Ctrl C after you copied it, and if you prefer seeing an hexadecimal value, you can just put it there. Then I will be introducing line height as we have done in the previous, so this is going to be 1.65. Then I'm going to be introducing padding, which of course you have seen before, and the padding is going to be 20 pixel at the top and bottom and 50 pixel at the left and right. Okay, and you can easily hit your Ctrl S to save your job. Then having started your column layout, remember we have 3 more classes to style, and the next one over here is your main column. Remember we have something like this in our HTML document, main column, and after this you also have sidebar 1. If you remember, we have sidebar 1, and we as well have sidebar 2. And if you observe what I am doing here, I am not even specifying any hierarchy. No problem. Our main interest at this point in time is to learn Flexbox, and that's what we really want to do. So if you head straight back here, you can see we have sidebar 2, we have sidebar 1, and if you scroll up, we also have main column. All of them occupy their own division, and that's the reason why I'm styling them differently. Okay, so if you head straight back to your document and hit on Ctrl S to save your job, so if you refresh right now, you can see what we have now. If you take a look at it, we now have our we have our div, which is occupying a maximum width of 1300 pixel, unlike the one above it that was occupying 800 pixel. Then we have heading 2 tag over here, and you can see it come out in dark bold black color. Then we have 3 columns inside it. Then if you scroll down, you can see over here that we have another division starting up immediately after this, and you can see it has heading 2 as well, I mean heading 3, and this one too have heading 3. Both of them occupies just one paragraph. Okay, so the idea now is, or the question is, how do we turn it to this 3 columns layout without using float left as we have done in the previous classes? Okay, so now the way forward to do this is to introduce you to what they call Flexbox. Remember that, let's get straight to our HTML. If you take a very good look at our layout, you will discover that we have column layout over here, and this column layout serves as the parent. It serves as the parent to the main column, the sidebar 1, and even the sidebar 2. So all I need to do now is to tell the parent, which in this case is the column layout, to be using Flexbox, and the children over here, they will of course react to that. And let's quickly do that without wasting much of our time. Now heading straight back to our column layout, I can now say that display, and the value is going to be flex, meaning that I want to introduce FLEXBOX. So all these three columns now, I can quickly give them their own width that they will take. Let's just call it that way. And I'm introducing flex 1, and okay, even without introducing anything over here, let's hit on Ctrl S to save our job, and you will discover that automatically, just by putting display flex to the parent, all of the columns, all of the div that are children will now react to that in a very surprising way. So now let's refresh our document. You can see now, just by putting display equals to flex, the children understand that they need to come next to one another horizontally. Okay, and the question now is, why does this occupy more width than the sidebar 1 and sidebar 2? You will be right if you say that just because it has more content than all of them. But what if you want them to occupy just the same amount of width? Okay, doing that is not going to be difficult for you, and that is where we go back to our last class where we introduce flex 1. Okay, so by saying flex 1 on the first child, and you say flex 1 on the second child, and you say flex 1 on the third child, what you are saying in essence is you want all of these siblings, remember they are siblings, they only have a common parent, and the common parent in this case is column layout. Okay, so moving on further, you are trying to tell all the siblings to occupy the same width, and that's the reason why you put 1 as the value. So if you head straight back to your document and you refresh, then okay, we are even getting something that is entirely different from what we planned for. Okay, so possible or likely cause are if your classes are different. Over here we have main column, and if you look at main column, there is no n over here, but if you head straight over here, there is n, so there is no synergy going on there. And to our document we are doing something different, but let me quickly correct that. Hit on Ctrl S to save my job, head straight onto my browser back and refresh. Very good. Now there is no cause for alarm any longer. So if you check on it very well, you will now discover that our flex 1 is really working as expected, just because they now occupy column width. And what if someone comes to you and say that, can you please make the main column to be 2 times of both of the other one? Okay, to be 2 times. So intuitively you will just put 2 over here. So what you are saying is the main column should be 2 times of this side 1 or side 2. So if you sidebar 1 or sidebar 2, so if you refresh now, you can see it now occupies 2 times of the width of the other. Okay, and if someone say, can you make it to occupy 3 times, and you just change it to 3, you hit Ctrl S to save your job and you refresh, you can see it's now occupying 3. Okay, let's say this is what you are going for, but another question comes up. The question is, I want sidebar 1 to be at the left, so that sidebar 2 will be at the right, and main column will now be in the middle. Okay, how would you achieve this? Doing that is not very difficult. The first thing that will come to your mind is going straight to our HTML documents and try to let sidebar main column be in the middle and sidebar 1 be at the top. Of course that is going to solve the problem, but there is another beautiful way that FLEXBOX is even providing you. There is a property called other, and with other you can see that you want the main column to occupy the position of 2, and you want the other one to the sidebar 1 to occupy the position of first, and you want the other two, sidebar 2 to occupy the position of third, just like that. And hit Ctrl S to save your document. Head straight back to your browser and click on your refresh button, and just because of the other property that we have attached to our style, you can now see that the main column is now coming in the middle, while the sidebar is coming at the left. Likewise, the sidebar 2 is coming at the right. So you can see, compared to what we have done in the previous classes using float left, this look extremely easy, straightforward, and even more beautiful. Okay, so that is where web is coming from, and that's how we are going to continue to graduate from the very old technology to the new technology, to the current technology, and to many more important technology. Okay, so this is FLEXBOX in action, and this is going to come to the end of column layout, or let's just say 3-column layout using FLEXBOX. So thanks again for attending this lecture, and we are going to move to something different but still on FLEXBOX. Thank you. Good day and welcome to example 3 on FLEXBOX. Okay, and this example 3 we are going to be looking at something different from what we have done in the last class. What we really want to do in this one is adding merging. Okay, and sorry please, this is example 3 we are going for, and if you observe very well, there is merging going on here and there is merging going on here. So we are heading straight to something like this. So we want to introduce merging to our document. Okay, and without wasting too much of our time, let's head straight to HTML and create the HTML look for this before we even add some style into it. Okay, so heading straight back to our lecture 9 document, I will head straight to my index.html, and if you look at it very well, if I click on this div, you will see that this marks the end of the third column layout. So I'm beginning another exercise, which of course is going to be example 3. So I'm going to be creating another div that I will be calling call out container, or let's add a call out container. So that's the div, and inside this I'm going to be creating another div that we are going to call out. Okay, and inside this div I want to have at least a heading 4 tag and a paragraph tag, but I do not want to waste too much of time, so I'm going to be copying what we have done in the previous class before this lecture, so that V to paste. Now if you look at it very well, I have callout container, and inside this callout container I have callout 1. I have callout. It has h4 tag and a paragraph, and I have another callout and I have another callout. So all these 3 callout, you can consider them as siblings or brothers or sisters of the same parent, and the parent in this case is call out container. Okay, so let's hit Ctrl S to save our job, and if you head straight over to your document and you refresh, then you see those color that we have just added. Okay, no problem. Now let's quickly style them. So I will head straight to my style.css and create a style for it. So the very first one I'm going to be doing is out. Don't forget it has s, then container. Good. So this is what I want to style, and just like what we have styled before, is going to be having a maximum width of, but first we need some merging. So keeping up to what we normally do, so merging, and you remember we normally give it like 40 pixels at the top, auto at the left, and another 0 at the bottom and auto at the right. Then we can now head straight to the maximum width, and in this case we're going to be giving it 1400 pixel, so that is going to be a bit wider than the previous one above it. And of course we are going to be introducing some FLEXBOX to it, but before then I'm going to be hitting Ctrl S to save my job, and I will head straight to create another container, or sorry, div, another class for call outs. Remember, we have 3 of these, so I'm going to be styling those as well. So the very first thing I'm introducing over here is going to be padding, so that I have some space in between them, and I'm giving it 20 pixel. So then we also want to, okay, without wasting too much of time, if you look at it very well, we have, this is the first child, this is the second child, but all of them are callouts. They have callout as their class, and this is the third child. I want to give them different background color, and let me quickly introduce another style of doing it. So you can of course say call out, so that means you are talking to the call out. Then you pass a property after a column, and the property is going to be nth child, and you can of course put 1 here, and that means you are talking to the first child, which is the call out, that is the first child. Then I can easily introduce some background color. Time Ctrl V to paste. So I'm going to Ctrl C to copy that line. So now I want to talk to the second child, and here I want to talk to the third child, but I want to give all of them different background color. So you can hit Ctrl space bar to bring the IntelliSense for the value, and let's say you are going for something like this. Okay, then you can of course get the hexadecimal value for it and put it here. Then let's clean this color too, because I want all of them to have different color. Maybe you want to go for something that look bluish in nature. Maybe you want this blue violet. You can just press enter and it's red, blue, violet, but at this time I want to stick to the hexadecimal. Okay, and I'm going to hit on Ctrl S to save my work. So at this point, if I head straight to my document and you refresh, then you can see now that the merging is playing its role. And if you look at it very well, you will see that the feature 2 and feature 3 does have their own background color, except the first one. And do you know the reason why? Okay, it's because the background color of the feature 1 is the same with the background color of the body, so you wouldn't observe the difference. So at this point, I'm going to go to the first one and change the background color. Hit on Ctrl V, and let's go for something like the dark red. Okay, so let's say you prefer that. At this point in time, you want to hit on your Ctrl S to save your job, and you want to hit on Ctrl V to as well save. So if you head straight over here and you refresh, then you see the background color coming into play. Okay, now remember, this is the first child, the second child, the third child. All of these children have one parent in common, and the parent in this case is what? Is the callout container. So if you come back here and say that callout container, I want you to have a display of what? Of flex. What you are saying directly or indirectly is I am using FLEXBOX. And just because you set that, Ctrl S to save your work, and if you now refresh just like we have done in the previous classes, they share this, and you can see just because this one have more content, it occupies more width, but the idea here is they really shared it. So we have done something similar to this before, but what we want to do here now is adding merging, and that's the title of today's lecture, adding merging, a merging like this. So how then do you now add merging? Since you've gotten up to this stage, how then do you add merging? First and foremost, if you observe very well, these three are occupying the same, they are taking the same number of width, but ours, we are not taking the same number of width. How do you correct that? So let's quickly correct that. So I will head straight to my call out. Each and every one of the call outs should now have a flex of 1, and just because you specify that, they will now occupy the same amount of width, and that's exactly what I am going for. And now let's say that you want to introduce some space in bit, I mean some merging. You can now make use of, let's say, merging right, and you give merging right of 40 pixels for instance. Let's see how that will go to save you. So coming back to call out here, you can now say margin right, and the margin right, you are now giving it 4 pixels. What you are saying indirectly is each and every one of these call out should now have a margin right of 40 pixels. So now there will be space here, there will be space here, and there will be space here too. So if you refresh now, okay, now there is space here. That's the margin right of 40 pixels for the first one, and for the feature 2 there is another space here, and for the feature 3 there is another space here. But we do not necessarily need this space here. So how do we escape this? Okay, there is a couple of ways to go around that. Okay, and one of such way is if you said call out. So that means I'm still talking to the call out, and you now specify last child. So what you are saying directly or indirectly is the last child should now have sorry please, okay, the last child does not need a a bracket, rather it only needs a curly braces. So you can now say the last child should now have a margin right of 0. And if you hit on Ctrl S to save your job and you refresh your document, then you can see that the last child no longer have that margin of 40 pixels, which of course really solved the problem. Okay, but the good news over here is we can achieve this result even in a more beautiful way than this, just because FLEXBOX provide us with a way to even do it more better than what we have already. Okay, so what we are going to do over here, in order to use some pattern that is even more common or better way that the FLEXBOX will do it, and let me quickly show you this. So because I want to show you a way that FLEXBOX will encourage to do it, but of course we are going to get the same result. So because I want to show you that, I'm going to be making my margin right over here to be a comment, meaning that it's no longer there, and I'm going to be making this last child to also be a comment, meaning that I'm no longer using it. And if you hit on your Ctrl S to save your job, you extract to your document and refresh, you see we are back to where we started. Okay, so we want to look at another approach of achieving the same result, but in a more way that is FLEXBOX by nature. Okay, so and in that case you want to introduce, let's say, widths of 30% over here. So if you say width of 30%, what you are saying directly or indirectly is each and every one of these children should be as wide as the 30% of the entire page. And do not forget that we have here 30, another 30, another 30, making 90. So there would now be 10% left of space, and 10% space left to share. So if you refresh now, and you can see that we have another 10 more percent to cater for. Okay, so that's the width. And because you make it to be 30%, you can now come down here and introduce another style that we call justify contents. And if you say space between has the value you are giving it, and you hit on Ctrl S to save your job, so if you come back here and refresh, then you can see that the remaining 10% is well shared between and among all of the children. Okay, then space between is not the only thing we have. We also have space around, and if you hit on Ctrl S to save your work and you refresh your document, then you can see the space even start from here and like that. So the space, but what we are really going for at this point in time is the space between. And instead of using this width, you won't be using the width specifically because it doesn't look more like we are doing FLEXBOX. So the name for the property of width in the FLEXBOX realms is the one you call flex basis. So the flex basis is serving the same purpose with what? With width property. So just that, this is what we are going for. Okay, and another thing again is anytime you are using padding, and let's say we also want to make use of some border bottom over here, because if you look at it, maybe you want some border in the bottom. So let's introduce border bottom, or margin bottom. I wanted to say margin bottom. So let's say the margin bottom we are giving it is 20 pixel. Okay, and you hit on Ctrl S to save your job. Then you also want to give it box sizing. The purpose for this box sizing is, in most cases when you use padding and margin bottom, we normally like to use box sizing, and the value we are giving today is border box. Okay, so you want to hit on Ctrl S to save your job and refresh. Then that is it. So when you use border bottom, when you use padding and you use some margin bottom, then we also want to introduce box sizing border box. So that does the magic. And one other thing I want to quickly show you before I call it a day here, you will observe that they are all occupying the same width. Maybe this is not the behavior you are looking for, because this has smaller contents compared to this one. There is a way around that. Let me quickly show you for the sake of completeness. There is another property you can apply to the parent, which we call align item, and let's see flex stats. So if you say flex stats and you hit on Ctrl S to save your job and you refresh, then you can see that each and every one of them only occupy the heights that they need. So that's flex stats. Then we also have another one. It's Ctrl spacebar, then you will see flex end. Ctrl S to save your job, and if you refresh over here, then you can see. So the alignment was based on the top and not on bottom again. Then we also have, it's Ctrl spacebar, we also have center. And if you hit on Ctrl S to save your job, the alignment is now going to be based at the center. So it depends on what you are going for. And we also have, it's stretched, and this stretch is the default behavior even if you do not put anything there. So if you refresh now, you can see this is the default behavior. So if you are going with stretched, then that means there is no point of even having it there at all, just because the default behavior is stretched. Okay, and that is what we have. Okay, so this is how they merging to your 3-column layout, and that is going to be all for today. So we move to the next example, still on FLEXBOX. Thank you. Good day and welcome to another lecture on FLEXBOX. Today we are going to be looking at responsiveness, what you can do to enhance your design such that it stays responsive irrespective of any screen size you are using to view your work. Take for instance, this is where we left off, and it's looking so good provided our window is working on a large screen. Let's make it to be smaller screen. Now look at it, it is now small, and because it's a small screen, we are not getting a very good look again, because they need to stay adaptive to the screen. It could have been better only if we can make it to look like this. Let's make comment out the display flex included with the justify. If you comment this out and you hit on Ctrl S to save your job, if you refresh your screen now, it could have been very better if it can display. It could have been okay if it can display like this on a smaller screen, but by the time it gets to a larger screen, we want it to utilize that very wide space so that it becomes something like this. I'm going to uncomment it back, hit on my Ctrl S to save the job, and if you head straight back here and you refresh your document, fine. Then we want something like this on a larger screen, and So we need to find a way to query our window. Are you working on a smaller screen or on a larger screen? So that our display will stay responsive to the type of screen where it is being run. I hope you get what I'm saying. So in order for me to be able to achieve that, you would need to I will need to make use of media query. So what is media query? It's a way of asking CSS to query the browser if the browser is working on a large screen, a medium screen, or a small screen, so that we can now add some code into the type of screen that it is running on. So something like that, we call it media query, and you can browse on CSS media query to even learn more on how it works. But for this very simple and straightforward example, I'm going to be creating media, then I'm going to open a bracket and type dash width, then followed by 900 pixel. So what it means is, then you're going to open your curly braces like this. So then I can take this tool out, Ctrl X to cut it, Ctrl S to save my job. Okay, so what this means is, if I go to a smaller screen, let's refresh, see what I get at a larger screen, but at least on a smaller screen you get the kind of things you are looking for. So that means I am designing it for a smaller screen. But what if I now have a very large screen like this? That is where I want to include those things I cut away, which is the display flex. So in that case, you want to come straight down here and call on the same class again, but this time around you want to make sure that you include the display flexbox. So what does this mean? It means the media will find a way to query the browser and ask the browser for the width of the width where our work is displaying. So if the width becomes something like 900 and above, then we want to make sure that we include this. But by the time it becomes less than 900 and above, then it's going to just make use of this class, because it will no longer qualify to meet up that criteria. So in that case, if you hit on Ctrl S to save the job right now, and you extrude back to the browser and refresh, now you can see that on a large screen, 900 pixel and above, we have something like this, which of course is what we are looking for. And by the time someone browses our website on a small screen, then we have something like this. So that means our work stays responsive. So if you are viewing the work on a smaller screen, you get this kind of look, and if you are viewing it on a larger screen, you still get the same kind of look. So this is what we call responsiveness, and this is what we call media query. So you achieve responsiveness with the help of media query. So you can be asking your browser for the width or the length of the window where it is running, so that if it is a smaller screen, you ask CSS to apply some styles, and if it is a larger screen, it apply different styles entirely. Okay, so the choice is left to you. So you must always be conscious that of responsiveness when you are designing your website, such that you try to view it on a smaller font and make sure that fine, you get the kind of look you are looking for. And this is what we really call front-end design, when, or rather you call it UI design, where you want to make sure that everything stay intact and good. So this is what we are going to cover in this tutorial, and it's just this very small thing, which of course is about adding responsiveness to your web. So thank you once again for staying tuned to this lecture, and in the next lecture I'm going to be showing you something different entirely. Thank you. Good day and welcome to lecture or example 5 on Flexbox. Okay, so we're going to be doing something different from what we have done in the previous class, and let me quickly show you over here. Today's lecture is going to be rows and columns. So we want to see having multiple rows and columns, something like this, and how you can really make sure that you find a way to balance the space in between those columns, and even when it is on a smaller screen, you find a way to make sure that you get the kind of look you are looking for. So we are going for this 1 2 3 4 5, designing something like this. Okay, and this lecture is going to be quietly fast just because I have done it before, so I'm going to be copying some code and quickly use it to make us complete the job as quick as possible. So we are going to start from designing the HTML for this, after which we had some styles to it. Okay, so now let's head straight back to our HTML, which is index.html over here. So I'm going to be creating another div over here. So we have something like this. We have a div that have a class called fixed size container. Then we have some children, some other some children inside of it, and over here they have content of 1 2 3 4 5. So if you hit on Ctrl S to save your job and head straight back to your document, you refresh and you scroll down, then you see those 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, so the very first thing we want to tackle is the container, because all these rectangles are inside this container. So first let's undo the container to make sure that the container looks as we want. So I'm going to head straight to your style.css, where we are going to be creating another class entirely. So if you look at it right now, we have margin of 40 pixels at the top, auto at the left, 0 at the bottom, and auto at the right. Okay, the maximum it is 1400 pixel. Background color is white. Padding is 20 pixel to the left and 50 pixel to the right. So at this point in time, I'm going to select these two for now and hit on comment. So let's hit on Ctrl S to save the job and head straight back to our job. And now we want to refresh. So if you look at it right now, you can see my container is looking exactly as I want, only that this 1 2 3 4 5 needs to stay like a rectangle. So the first thing I'm going to be doing on them is to give them some width and height to paste. Now let us try to analyze it. If you head straight back here, you discover that each and every one of these div has a class of fixed size. Then I am styling the fixed size here. So the first thing you're going to observe is each and every one of those children, each and every one of them will now have width of 100 pixel and height of 100 pixel. It has a background color of blue and font color of white. Okay, so if you comment this out and hit on Ctrl S to save your job and head straight back to your browser and refresh, now look at it. You can see then that they now have all of them have this rectangle now, although they are joined together, so you wouldn't even know that they are not just one rectangle. Okay, so in order not to make them join together, if I let's uncomment this. If I leave the margin bottom to be 20 pixel, Ctrl S to save your job, then you now see some margin at the bottom of each rectangle. Now you can see those margin of 20 pixel. Okay, so that's so you can now see that this rectangle have a width of 150 pixel and it has a height of 100 pixel. It has color blue, background color blue, and it has color white for the fonts. That's exactly what we have designed if you check on this property very well. Okay, then we now have the tester line. Okay, now look at the line heights. So let's leave the line height, Ctrl S to save our job. Line height of 100 pixel. So if you head straight back here and you refresh, okay, So you can see then that the line height of 100 pixel is able to leave some space in between the line. I would want you to try the line height property on this paragraph so that you can get to see what they do. Okay, let me quickly share let's do it together so that you can see exactly what line height is doing. And do not forget, if you head straight back to this is a paragraph feature 3, and you can see it has call out as a class. So I need to look for call out here, and this is call out. Okay, so let me now put the line height just so that you can get a feel on what line height is doing. So I'm going to give it 50 pixel, Ctrl S to save my job. So each and every one of these call outs now have line heights of 50 pixel, and you will see what it does in a moment. So let's head straight back here. Can you just take a very good look at this paragraph? Look at how clumsy they are right now. So if you refresh now you can see the space in between those paragraphs. Okay, that is the space in between the lines. Okay, so that is what line height is doing for you. And just because the 50 pixels looks too much to me, so I'm changing it to 10 pixel, and if you head straight back and refresh, okay, you can see now that it's getting negative. Okay, because it's not really giving us what we like. So at times you might have to try different numbers, okay, to really get the kind of feel that you are looking for. Okay, so if you refresh right now, okay, this is not too bad if that is what you want. But to some people, they will say, okay, can I still reduce it a bit? So let's make it 20 and hit on Ctrl S to save the job. So, and let's hit it. Okay, it's not bad, but at least it's far better than. Okay, so that is what the line height is doing, and now we are applying the line height over here. That's why the one jump down to the middle, because if you remembered very well, you will discover that the height of our rectangle is 100 pixel. Okay, it's 100 pixel, and the line height of 100 pixel is trying to leave some space in between the lines. Okay, and just because we have only one line now, it will try to balance it up in the middle of the entire height. So you might have to play with those numbers to really get some ideas on what numbers to use that fit in best, but what looks best is the best number. Okay, so now let's move forward. Over here we have test align center, and let us uncomment that, Ctrl Z. Okay, so we have test align center, font bold, font size. So all of these are talking about the size of the 1 to 3, and this one is sending it to the center. Okay, and if you hit on Ctrl S to save your job right now, and you head straight back here, you refresh, now you can see that the test align did send it to the center. The font bold did make it bold, and I mean the font weight, and the font size of 60 pixel also make it large. That's good. Then if you head straight back to our document, we have what is it called, padding 0 top and bottom, left and right. You are making it auto, so it's on Ctrl S to save your job. And if you head straight back here, you won't get too much of a difference anyway, so you may not even put that one there. You understand? So now we want them to line up horizontally. You already know the way forward to that. Okay, what I need to do is to, okay, this is my container, so I need to make use of the display over here. I wonder where the display even run up to. I thought the display is supposed to be there. Okay, the display, then flex. Okay, and if you hit on Ctrl S to save your job right now, and you come straight back here and refresh, you can see all of them now occupies just one line. Okay, but only that they are if you observe very well, you will discover that they indeed occupy horizontal line, but there are spaces here, so it's left to you to distribute this space in between those rectangles. I mean the 5 rectangles, and for you to distribute those space, you can of course say that use this that we have tried in the previous class, and you can say space around, something like this. So it's going to distribute the remaining spaces around those rectangles instead of just shifting them to one side. And you can see it did start, assuming it is space between, then this could have started all the way here, but the space around distribute it all around I hope you understand. So that is trying to work on multiple column. But let me quickly share something with you. If I make this to be very small, check what we have. Now do you see that what we have does not have any margin in between it again? You understand? Just because it's getting large, because what is it called, the flexbox is so stubborn, so much so that it does not jump to the next line. It continues to shrink on that one line, and right now we are short of space. It could have just used some other space under it, so that this 5 can come under, the 4 can come under, and at least they will maintain the look that we are looking for. But unfortunately the flexbox is so stubborn that it will just keep on shrinking them all on the same line. But let's say you do not want that kind of behavior. That is when the flex strap comes into play, and I'm going to hit Ctrl Z to so we are now testing flex wrap. Okay, so if you supply the value of wrap, what we are saying in essence is, flexbox, do not overstress yourself shrinking them horizontally all on one line. You can just make use of space underneath it, and that is what the flex wrap is trying to say. So if you refresh right now, you can see now that at least, even though we are short of space, but at least we have some space under, and these kind of things work fine with what we want. But there is another property you can give to, value you can give to flex straps, and if you hit on Control space bar, it gives you that you can give it no wrap, and this no wrap is the default behavior that we have seen initially. Okay, and we said we do not want no wrap, rather we want some wrap. So if you now hit on Ctrl S to save your job, now you can see that it breaks it into multiple line, and that's what I really want to show you. And you already know what the align item does. The align item just depends on where you want to the pivot point, something like that. You can give it align start, align end, and center. We have worked with this one in one of our previous classes. So if you hit on refresh, you can see we do not have something better, other something more different than that. So what we have really considered over here is multiple rows, multiple columns, something like that. How you can try to break this stubbornness of flexbox and makes it to look even more flexible, and that's what we have really considered in this example. So still on flexbox, stay tuned to the next lecture, because flexbox really brings a lot of wonderful things into your CSS career, such that you may do totally away with float left that we have seen in a lot of our classes. Okay, so we still have 1 or 2 more lectures on flexbox before we now call it we now wrap it up and move to something different. And I would thinking we will be shifting to JavaScript, because if we continue to learn on CSS and front-end design, we won't go into programming, and we really need to go into programming. There is no time for us. Okay, but this thing that I'm showing you as very important, to the point that if you understand programming and you do not have a very good outlook for your web, and people might still be thinking that it's not really good enough. Okay, and that's why I want to spend that time to see how you can get some structures, a nice looking structures onto your web, such that you get any kind of design, you design any kind of things that comes into your mind. So once again, thank you for staying tuned to the end of this lecture, and I will be moving you to something different in our next lecture. Thank you. Good day and welcome to another lecture on Flexbox, and today we are going to be designing something like this. If you observe and take a very good look on this rectangle that have center me placed inside of it, you will discover that this center me is located in the center of the rectangle. Okay, is located in the center of the rectangle, and the challenge in this exercise is, how do you center this center me place exactly in the center of the rectangle? How do you do that? With Flexbox, it is super easy and fun, But if you have ever tried something like that with float left or some other technique like absolute positioning and relative positioning, you will discover that it's not just super easy with them. Let me quickly remind you, in one of our previous classes, like this passion drives me, we've done something like this before, where we are making use of some absolute positioning to really take this to the center, and you will recollect how much of effort it took us to really get it to the center. But this time around we are doing something similar to this, exactly like this, but with different techniques entirely. Okay, so that's what we are going to do, and that's going to be our exercise for today. So without wasting much of our time, let's head straight to our design. Okay, so let's head straight to our index.html and create a div. Okay, so this div, let's give it a class of banner. Okay, and we're going to create another class inside it, and we can call this class centered me, something like that. So I'm creating another div and it will just be center me. That's the class that I am giving to it, and I'm going to write a few words here: center me, please. Okay, and I'm going to hit on Ctrl S to save my job. Okay, and right now it's not so big, because if you head straight to a document and you refresh, head straight down, then you see the center me, please. You can see it's far from what we are really driving at, but there is no cause for alarm. You already know by now that to really get it to look the way we want them, we need to switch to our style.css and try to style it. But before we begin the styling for the center me, we are going to style the banner. Okay, so the banner, we are styling it. We're going to give it a height of 400 pixels, so we want it to be that long. Then we are going to give it max width, which is going to represent our width, so we're going to make it to be 700 pixels wide. Okay, so you want to introduce some background color. Okay, let's say you are going for purple, not bad. Then you also want to introduce display over here, and change the display to flex, meaning that we are using FLEXBOX. Okay, so you want to hit Ctrl S. Let's head straight to our document and refresh. Okay, now you see a rectangle coming out here. Okay, so to make it to be at the center, you want to introduce what we normally do, which of course is merging, and you want to give it 40 pixels at the top, then auto at the left, then 0 at the bottom, then auto at the right. And if you hit on Ctrl S to save your job and straight here, then you see that we now have a rectangle over here in the center. So the next challenge is, how do you make this to be at the center over here? Okay, so for you to be able to do that, you need to style the centered me in just the same way you style that one. So we call this center dash me, and that is what we are styling. Okay, and remember, this is what we are styling, so which of course is the content that we have inside here, the centered me. So the only thing you need to do, so first let's give it some color, and the color we give to let's give it white. Okay, so you know the ash represent the white. Then let's give it some font size so that it will be big, and we're giving it for 50 pixels. Okay, then you now want to introduce merging. Okay, and just put auto here, and that means that you are using auto at both top, bottom, and left, right, something like that. So if you straight back here and refresh Fowler, so it comes to the center in this with very little stress, or even no stress at all. Okay, so that is how to centralize your content in the middle of your of your, in as small in the middle of your container, in as much you are using FlexBox, it becomes extremely fun and super easy. And that is how to quickly create a centered me. And before we move to the next lecture, which of course is going to be the final lecture, let me quickly draw your attention to something. This entire lecture, starting all the way from beginning down to the end, it's all about creating a very nice structure for your website. Okay, so you may not be using some already designed template, rather you can start designing your own template even with your pure CSS, and you get something very cool. Okay, so all these exercises are to show you different ways of coming up with something cool for your website, even with less or little stress. So thank you once again for staying in tune up to the end of this lecture, and we are going to be moving to the final part of our FlexBox. Okay, so till the next lecture, thank you so much. So welcome to the last and the final part of our FlexBox tutorial, and today we are going to be creating something like this. Okay, something like this. So if you observe very well, you will discover that this is two columns, where the second column is divided into another two. So something like this is another kind of look you would see many websites having. Okay, so and we want to do it in such a way that the second column will be equally divided between the height will be equally divided and not the width. So something like this is what we are going for, and you can see we have some paragraphs here, okay, that we are going to be using. So without wasting our time, let's just head straight to the HTML, and first we are going to create the kind of structure for this, after which we go to the CSS and style it. So I'm heading straight to my index.html, and I'm going to create another div. Let's give it a class of equal width. Okay, because we are creating two columns that have equal width. Then press enter. Then inside the equal width, we are creating another div here, and we are going to call it, give it a class of first. Okay, this is going to have 3 paragraphs at least. Then we will create the second div, and this second div we will just give it a class of second. Okay, and remember that the second div is divided again into another two. This is the first div, this is the second div, but the second div have A and B, so it's not so difficult. We need to go into the second div and create another div inside it, and we are going to give it a class of second-A. Okay, then we can just type maybe here and create another div. Let's give it second-B, and we can give it something like this, and this is the kind of structure that we are going for. So the remaining thing is to style it. So you can hit on Ctrl S to save your job, and if you head straight to your web browser and refresh, see what we get without styling. Just A and B, so far from what we are looking for. There is no cause for alarm. Let us begin our work by styling the equal dash width, which is the parent of everything. Okay, so I would head straight to a new line and create a class for equal dash width. Okay, and over here, first we want to make sure that we give it a max width of 700 pixels. We want it to be that long. Okay, then we also want to make sure that we give it display, and the display is going to be flex because we are using flexbox. Okay, and just because we make it flex alone will do the trick of putting the first and the second div side by side. Okay, and let's give it margin, and the margin we are going to give it 0 at the top and bottom and auto at the left and right. So if you hit on your Ctrl S to save your job right now and you refresh your page, then you won't see much of a difference anyway, just because we are not even giving it any background column. So remember, if you head straight to your index.html, we now have first and we have second. Okay, so that means you want to style your first just as you also want to style the second. Okay, and since we want equal width, you might want to give it flex of 1, then also dot second, you might as well want to give it flex of 1, but I would not leave the two first and second alone without giving it some background color. So we can maintain the white background color for first. So let's give it background color and let it be white. Okay, then for this second one, well, do not forget that the second column have another two div inside of it, which of course they are A and B. So how do you achieve that? Well, what you can do is to turn the second column into another container for the second A and the second B. And let me quickly give you some background colors so that you can get some feels on what I'm trying to explain. So I'm going to hit on Ctrl S to save the job, and if you refresh right now, okay, you can see the two columns, it's equally divided. Okay, and you can see the A and you can as well see the B, but the A and the B have no idea that they are using flexbox. It's only the first and the second that have the idea that they are using flexbox because they have a parent who told them that flexbox is in action. But the A and B is a grandchild to that one, and unfortunately the hierarchy does not extend to them. Okay, and that is the reason why I need to come to this second part here, I mean my second, and try to turn it to parent to both of them, so that it's a parent to them, but it needs to let them be aware that the flexbox is in action. Okay, and for you to be able to achieve that means you need to come into second over here and choose display and tell the display that you are using flexbox. And if you now hit on Ctrl S to save your job and you refresh your document, you can now see that the A and the B are now side by side. Okay, now let's make it to be very interesting by introducing some paragraphs. Okay, okay, I won't waste too much of time because I have some paragraphs that I have used in the previous examples. So I did 3 paragraphs and here are 3 paragraphs, so I'll quickly use them. So it's a Ctrl C. You can hit Ctrl C if you are on Windows operating system. Then you head straight to the first over here and put the 3 paragraphs over there. Good. Then let me hit Ctrl S to save the job. Then I'm going to head straight to style that which I call second-A. Okay, and I want to give you some background color so that you can see some changes. Okay, let's go for tomato. Okay, I hope you like tomato. If you are the type that eat rice very well, you must like tomato. because I don't think you can do away from tomato. So it's good we are using the color of tomato. Okay, I wish we can have some color for onion. Let me just type onion so that our ingredient will be complete. So there is no color for onion. Let's go for pepper. So there is no color for pepper too. I will just assume this is onion. So let's go for purple. We are short of ingredients. So I'm hitting Ctrl S to save my job, and if you extract here and refresh, okay, now you can see my paragraphs and you can see the A and B side by side. And even if you take a look at them, you will discover that they do not occupy the entire space. My question is why? Well, you can say that maybe the parent does inform them that Flexbox is in action, but they need to also let the parent know that they want to occupy the same number of widths, or maybe 2 times A over, like, let me show you like what we have done before. If you say flex and you say 1, that means it will take a single space, and if you say flex over A and you say 2, that means it's taking two and it's taking twice of the second A, but I'm not going for that, so I'm going for both of them to be single. So if you hit on your refresh, now you can see that they did occupy the space. And if you observe this one, you will discover that there is no padding over here. It's not a problem, so we can introduce the padding. Remember that content is on the first over here. Okay, no problem. Let's just put the padding on the equal width so that all of them have that number of padding. Then I'm going to give it 20 pixel and hit on Ctrl S to save my job. If you head straight back to your work and you click on refresh, okay, now very good. You can see that the padding is for the container, which of course is the parent. But now that we are talking about the contents over here, so you can see that you did have to do lot of works to really get the kind of looks you are going for. Now we want to go into first and add some padding, okay, because you will recollect that this is inside, this is a container on its own, which we call first. So that is what I'm giving the padding right now, and maybe you're giving it 10 pixel and you hit on Ctrl S to save your job. If you head straight back here and you refresh, now you can see the padding, and it's the padding starts here over here, because I do not specify whether it is left or right. Good. Then you will observe that this is not justified, I mean the paragraphs. So let's say you are really doing this for a client, you wouldn't want this work not to be justified, so you can use text-align and put justified over here on the first. And if you head straight back to your work, you see now that it's justified, but you can see that it's a single line spacing. To some clients it may look too clumsy, so what do? You want to quickly make use of the line height you have done in the past, and let's just make it maybe in the last example we used 20 and it looks a bit okay. So this time around let's make it 15 pixel and see what we got. So if you hit on refresh now, okay, the 15 pixel is even worse than the single line spacing. So I think you just have to stick to 20 if you do not want too much of space, and hit on Ctrl S to save your job. Head straight back to the browser and you want to refresh. Okay, you can see it's good. But if you take a look at what we want to achieve, you will see that the A and the B does not share the width, rather they share the height. But if you take a very good look at our home, which of course is the default behavior, is sharing the width and not the height. So how do you achieve that? Well, it's not a big deal. Remember that both A and B have a parent of second. Remember, this is second A, second B, but the parent of both of them is second, and that second, if you take a look at it, is using display flex, so it becomes the flex box provider to these two contents, so to say. okay. And in that case, there is this property which has to do with direction, but it is called flex direction, and you can put the value of column over there and hit on Ctrl S to save your job. So if you refresh now, you will discover that it's no longer sharing the width but the column, and it is equal. Remember, if you do not want it to be equal, you may not use flex 1 you can just use flex 2 flex 3 so that one will be long, the other will be big. So, and that is going to mark the end of today's lecture on flex on rows and columns, okay. But the idea now, before I really call it a day, is what is the purpose to all of this? Believe me, it has a lot of purpose, and it really goes in synchronizations with what we have done in the past. So my first challenge to you right now is look at what we have done in the past. Take a very good look at it. I know you have done it as well, starting all the way from your contact us to your sign up. You can see, although they look okay but not so okay, and if you even look at it very well, you can see now, you see what is going on over here. Can you see that it's not as responsive as you would have wanted it to be? So my challenge to you right now is take all the lessons you have learned, starting from the first one here down to the second one here, down to the third one here, to the fourth, to the fifth, to the sixth, down to all of them. Use it to create a very good and nice outlooks for what we have done in the past. Mind you, you do not necessarily have to do it to look exactly like this. No, the idea is you can come up with something better than this, only that you just need to make use of your ideal of FLEXBOX to even come up with a very good approach, okay. And I will have, I'm not currently online, I will have loved to show you yahoo.com. Go to yahoo.com, look at their structure. Nothing concerns you so much about the animations going on over there. Leave that one till further notice, okay. But look at yahoo.com, look at their structure and try to come up with the same structure. It's not difficult at all. With all the skills that you have mastered in both your HTML and CSS, I would have loved to continue our journey on CSS up to the place where we are going to be doing some animations on your web page. But the reality is we have a long way to go, and this has taken too much of our time, okay. So we need to go into programming. We can always come back here and do some other few stuffs that we did not do. But with all the skills you have gathered working with a series of examples that we have done together, you are now on a very good level to even further help your journey to master something big. And just as I've promised earlier on, I will be supplying you things that will even make your journey to be extremely smooth in your career to become a fantastic web developer. So please try and come up with something better than this. If not better, you can as well come up with something like this, but make use of your idea, your knowledge of FLEXBOX to even do something more professional, okay. I may still be introducing you to bootstraps that will even add more beauty to your front-end design, okay. So I was thinking of going into bootstrap before, which of course still have to do with design, okay, but we can always come back there. Let's go into programming and master JavaScript, after which we can move to PHP, so that you can really fast track your journey to become a full stack web developer. So thank you so much. Try and complete my exercise, and if you have done it, just kindly let me know. I may ask you to even send me and take a very good look at it. So this marked the end of our journey into HTML and CSS, and my next lecture now you should be expecting programming, which has to do with JavaScript. Once we are able to master JavaScript, then we know that we have covered our front-end design to a very large extent. Then we can now move to the server side, where you are going to be learning PHP with some other stuffs, okay, and MySQL. So once again, I want to thank you for staying tuned up to this lecture, and I really want to congratulate you on your success to master the whole of this concept up to this point in time, because this is the foundation of web development. And for so many who lacks this foundation, always find themselves in the position of having to come back to fill in the gap. Okay, so the HTML and CSS is fundamental and basics for any would-be professional in web development. So thank you once again, and I congratulate you once again. So see you in my next lecture, which has to do with programming JavaScript. Thank you.